Okay, so I ran out of storage. I had to go remove some videos and stuff. And when you do that, you have to go also to your recently deleted and re-delete them off all your devices, or still your storage will still be full. But anyway, um, so I started healing myself, and then I went vegan after the big awakening happening with me. 2014, I started going vegan in 2016, 17, and that was the final thing to my healing and being one with the universe and God's love of the Ten Commandments and thou shalt not kill. And I mentioned this before. I know it was probably scary being dinosaurs and cavemen, and we did have to overcome the beast, and we took it too far. So it's going to stop. The vegans will be running the world. It's just a matter of time with God in a good way. Um, I know for a fact when you leave your apartment or your home, you have people come in and presences, neighbors, these unseen individuals. You might hear them once in a while walking around upstairs or what have you. But then they come in and they steal from you and take things, and they're perverts, a lot of them. They're very perverted. They'll just take things that you hope you don't realize are missing. You know, like, where's my underwear? Where is that nectarine I just bought? It was in the fridge. Anyway, so, and they do come in and hurt your animals. Just know that. It's really cruel what we're doing. And buying animals, leaving them at home, thinking that that's the solution. It's not. They don't want them barking, and they also do horrible things to them. So I really support this notion of you not doing that. And as an employer, you really need to have a kennel so people can bring their pets to work. Real quick, I'm going to touch on people commuting and what a joke it is, how we put so much importance on cars and not on people's health. There are no bike lanes for people. Every day on the news, you see a kid or somebody being hurt by a bicycle, on a bike, or with an e-bike or e-bike motorcycle, or this and that. There are no bike lanes for people. And the importance on cars has to stop because people are very unhealthy out there. They're not getting out there. They're not exercising, riding their bikes. A lot more people would ride their bike to work if they could, and there were decent lanes for them. Right now it's dangerous. And your kids, you really got to watch them, man, 24/7 as much as possible. Get home cameras, and it's worth it. And keep your home safe, okay? So there's a movie you can watch called They're Alive. I think it's from the 70s, and this man finds sunglasses in a church, and it shows Los Angeles after a collapse, government collapse, things like that. And when he puts on these sunglasses, all of a sudden what he's seeing is not what it was. So he was seeing the actual wording behind the magazines and the newspaper and the reporters on TV. Control, control, all this stuff. And when you control the food, you control the people. People get in a panic over food, or feel like they don't have enough, or they do this type of hoarding and then they waste food. We really had our power taken away by us by not understanding that we should be growing our own food. And the school should be for the whole community, not just school like that. It should be very different, like a headquarter with God, and supporting the whole neighborhood, and no more commuting, and having a kennel. And you can start doing a lot of these things in your neighborhood, having a kennel or a pantry, and seeking employment right in your neighborhood with your neighbors. There's people on income that are willing to pay you to do things. Don't let your kids and people that don't really have a voice become victims of people too by helping them, So you got to be careful with dog sitting and cleaning homes and caregiving and vice versa. There's a lot of caregivers that do terrible things to people. So when I met my spouse, my ex, he had started this little company, and he wasn't sure which way to go with it. He was a photographer. He had gone to Brooks Institute in Santa Barbara, but they forced you to take classes at the college, and he was pre-med. And when we met on a photo shoot, things were great at first, and then I realized something was happening to me. I was losing my life when I was with him, and I'd be like, "You're doing something to me. I don't know what you're doing." And it stopped. We started using marijuana and growing it and stuff like that, and all that stuff stopped. We did a lot of experimenting with different dosages, and you have to be careful with marijuana because of the swallowing effect. You can have a hard time swallowing because they remove the patent, or they don't like you, or they want you dead. This consciousness is really out there, and you can get hurt on anything: riding your bike, skateboarding, walking across your living room, and weather, things like that, boyfriends, girlfriends, all this stuff. So we want people to be careful with whatever they do and not get hurt. So this movie, They're Alive, is free on TV, I'm sure. And so he had started this company. He was doing headshots for people, and it was a right to work state in Arizona, so you could get work without belonging to a union. And so we were, when we met, it happened really fast. I ended up moving in with him like 2 weeks later, and we eloped 5 months later. And we still weren't sure which way to go with this company. We were getting a lot of slack from agents, people calling us a scam, and being really rude. The production companies pissed off that people had the nerve to submit to them directly in Arizona, and cussing me out, all kinds of stuff happened. And then we just kept plugging away and started supplying people to promotions, and then I started getting called for like these B movies, westerns, whatever they were, supplying talent, and it was more like unpaid extra work. And then, I started getting more jobs. They saw we were serious, and we were still getting really bad mouthed by the agents there in town. And then one day I got a phone call, and, "Hi, this is Laura Garcia with Channel 5 News, and I'm just curious. I've heard so much about your company. I wanted to know what you guys did there." And I'm like, "Oh, shit, I said, "Well, I told her." And she's like, "Well, we've had 2 complaints, and we wanted to see if we can come do an in-person interview with you on camera, get your side of the story." And I go, "Okay, well, who complained? Because I haven't heard from anybody, recently." And she goes, "Well, 2 people, and they didn't get any work, or this happened." And I think she told me their names, and I said, "I know them." I said, "They never called us." So, because we always handle complaints the best we could, including giving a refund if they didn't, reshooting them with their headshots. It wasn't a guaranteed industry. So, but we started keeping a file system. And then my spouse ended up learning web applications, self-taught, C#, Visual Basic, got the books, read them, and started making our own website and database. Became really good at it. And then, so what was funny is Channel 5 News, the general manager for Channel 5, his wife came into us prior to this, and she ended up getting extra work because we would have him autograph their headshot, and we would put it on the wall. She was really cute. It was cute blonde. And Patrick North was his name. Linda North. And she got work on a movie. don't know if it was Whoopi Goldberg, but I call it a sister movie. It was really cute. She worked on that set and had a good time. And it dawned on me what was going on. I called, Laura back, and I go, Linda North came through us. I go, the spouse of Patrick North, your general manager. And back then, I faxed them her headshot and we had them write a testimonial too. And he wouldn't talk to me at all, Patrick North. I tried talking to him. Laura didn't care. And she still was insistent on getting this on camera interview. So I said, fine, let's do it. So we agreed to a time, and she was going to come to our office. And in the meantime, I had the waiting room full of people that had gotten work through us. And she shows up with her brother Gilbert, and it's just those two. And we go in this little office and sit down, and she's really pissed because we didn't agree to this, because I had my employee with the video camera on them. And she's like, we did not agree to this. This was not in our contract. I go, we didn't sign a contract, and I can videotape you. I'm like, what are you talking about? This wasn't in our contract, and we didn't agree to this. I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. We just went back and forth, and I wasn't going to stand down. And they got up, packed up their shit, and left. Didn't talk to anybody in the waiting room, and they were pissed. And he kept chiming in too. I don't know what Fat Ass was saying, but he was saying stuff. And anyway, I assumed it was her brother. So anyway, they aired this mock piece of us about what a scam we were. And they had taken our photo as we walked through the parking lot, parking lot mugshot photo. And luckily it didn't hurt our company. People called and were supportive. Like, I'm really sorry that happened. They knew we were really trying our best to get people work and have things coming through now, directly. And then a few years later, I had an employee. She was attending college at a community college. And she came into work and she was like, Patrice, she goes, do you know Gilbert Garcia? And I go, yeah. She goes, he's my teacher. Because he's bad-mouthing you. I go, really? She goes, yeah, I can't believe what he was saying in class about you. I go, motherfucker. So I called him, and I got his voicemail, and I left him a message. A very clear message that he better stop. And so now, so years went by, we started doing a lot of casting, and I was really busy, and we did a lot of commercials and movies, including The Kingdom with Jamie Foxx and Jennifer Garner and Jason Bateman. And I really spoke up for the actors because they would use and abuse people and treat them like crap on set, including sleeping around with them, making them feel like they were their one and only, and then leaving town and talking horrible to them and so on and so forth, thinking they're just gods, and they're not. They're such idiots and mean people that do movies. They're terrible people to work with, especially the producers, because they're the ones calling the shots, the money people. So I stood up for the actors, and they would, even the SAG Phoenix president, who was hurt, obviously, was very feminized, would call me, he had his voice, and expected me to handle things. I ended up moving to Hawaii. The Kingdom was a big deal because they wanted to use me as an employee, and I had this company, and I was nervous about that because I was an independent contractor normally, and they expected me and my whole company to be a part of it, though. And I was getting like $850 a week or something to do casting for The Kingdom. And the extras wrangler from LA was like, hey, I make sure to tell production they better be nice to people and this and that, this and that. And so they came to town, and next thing I know, I'm doing all this like speaking role auditions, even though I was hired as an extras casting coordinator. You know, I was putting people on tape now and doing things outside of the scope of what I was hired to do. And I wasn't really making a big stink about it, but back then I didn't really have the upload capability of like uploading video clips and stuff like that. I was very self-taught with what I was doing anyway. I didn't work under anybody ever to learn this. And there was one prominent day where they wanted me to meet them at the location where they set up this town that looked like a Middle Eastern village. And it was the Mesa Gateway Airport. And my spouse, being a pilot, because he also learned and continued his flying, and we had 2 small planes during our marriage. He got a lot of ratings. He was excited, and he took me that day, and they got so pissed he was there. He can't be included in this meeting, and he's not invited, and this and that. And it was pretty sad. So then the first day I had to try to get, not the first day of filming, this is pre-production, we were wrangling, trying to get people that could audition for speaking roles, including Middle Eastern men. And one day in particular, they rented a church in Phoenix for the auditions, and I had lined up a few guys, and it was a challenge, and they were nice, and they showed up. And next thing you know, this extras wrangler from LA came out, and she started barking at him. What are you doing? I told you, you got to be quiet out here, or whatever she was saying. Yeah. I was like, holy cow, I can't believe you're talking to them like that. I was appalled. I go, we got to watch out for you, not these other people. I can't believe you're talking. I go, I worked really hard to get them here because they're like, fuck her, we're leaving. And I'm like, I don't blame you. I'm really pissed. And so I lost some guys that didn't want to be put on camera after that. And they were hard to find to begin with. But, they're not interested. And they would get pissed at set and leave, the ones we could. And they're like, we want no Mexicans substituting for Middle Eastern people. We need the real deal. That was the whole thing. Got to have real ones. And by the end of the movie, you heard a lot of "Órale pues" on set because they hated it. And so I was, back then we were going back and forth to Hawaii, and it was just calling to us, and I know now why. But I was going away for their summer, and I hadn't told them yet that I was leaving town because I was smart enough to know I could do this from a computer. Being on set and checking people in, and then you're trying to make calls, that didn't work for me. I'm not that person, so I had an assistant going on set, a couple of them. Meanwhile, I was the only employee, and I was now paying them from my $8.50 a week I was getting. And so I really lost money on this movie, to be honest. But they were so pissed I left town, and I was working the whole time I was there. I didn't have any fun. I never did running this company. It was long hours. I worked the whole time I was there because we had our casting alert system now in place, and we could get people on set, and we could send things out and get people to respond, and so on and so forth. And my assistant ended up backstabbing me, for lack of a better word, turning on me. And even though she would call and be so upset, crying, I can't handle it. I love it. She was really losing it. And then she ended up really turning on me because I came back to town. And, I heard the whole time they were bad-mouthing me and stuff like that. And I went to the wrap party. And they wouldn't let me in. They go, you don't have a ticket. And my assistant was in. There was someone else I'd never seen in my life. And I ended up, I think, going in. But anyway, I still heard to this day, I heard you left town. You just screwed them over. I heard that too. Yeah, me too. Anyway, so ended up moving to Hawaii 2010 full time. And we started going virtual before this because we really started getting into more of the calling of the healing realms and shaman type of stuff. And so we were going virtual, getting rid of the office, this and that. And because we had our casting alert system in place and not having people show up, they could just sign up online and upload headshots and pay a monthly fee or a quarterly fee or, $79 a year and get casting alerts. And I went to one of those movie things in Wailea, Hawaii, when I was kind of back and forth, and was excited to go. I forget what they're called, were they movie festivals, film festival. And I went there, and there was these bigwigs from LA. They're bloated bubbleheads, and rude. And I remember trying to ask questions, how can a casting director get more work or blah, blah, blah. And they were really rude. Couldn't be bothered. And then the Maui Council, I befriended some people there. I thought, well, maybe there's some people here that want to get work. I could partner with people. And I met this girl who was doing extras wrangling, and she wasn't an agent. She, too, was getting really bad mouth about what she did. And I ended up being a casting director. I was working now with the agents. I was doing SAG and non-union casting. And we would also supply people to promotions, print work, stuff like that. And so the Maui Film Festival, just a joke. And I befriended this girl who was doing that, getting bad mouth, and she was just doing, kind of like us, but not working with agents because there weren't any agents on Maui. They were on Oahu. And I met somebody that was friends with the film commissioner, Harry Tate, and he was really bad-mouthing her, and I got pissed at him. I can't believe you're talking about her like that. Like, who do you think you are, And he's an actor. Branscombe. And he did like Las Vegas or casino gigs, stuff like that as a performer. Anyway, they didn't like this film commissioner, and he called me in and said, would you mind testifying in court about just the film industry and what you know about it type of thing? And I said, no, I don't mind. And so I went and we talked about, how Arizona didn't have the studios and the infrastructure that LA was looking for. And so they could really screw people. And so we would get bypassed to go to New Mexico, wherever they offered these things. And, we just kind of discussed that. And they were very nice. And then after that, I remember getting invited into the mayor's office and meeting some people there. And it just kind of reminded me of Boys Club, And then after that, I got an email from his assistant, Alan R. Carr's assistant, saying, hey, we're really highly considering you as the Maui Film Commissioner. I said, wow, trippy. I was now living in Haiku, Welo, to be exact. And it was, a 45-minute hour drive into town. I thought, no, we just started going virtual. We're going down this calling of the healing shaman realms, and we're starting to grow our own food and just be at one with nature. And our marriage was okay, but it wasn't great because we were still, not doing what we should have been doing with our child. And so I turned it down. I didn't even ask, what it paid or anything. I there's no way I was going to be on a helicopter going to these other islands and talking to these people. Can we use they want to do a film here. Do you mind if we really exploit you? Cool. Okay. So then, the big awakening happened, and the company actually shut down in 2021. I was still earning an income from it. unbeknownst to me, that fast, hey, we're shutting it down. And I had divorced by then, got dragged away from my spouse because he didn't like what he was doing to me still. And I told you I met God in 2014. And anyway, you go through the awakening, you tend to lose things. I mean, like, your worldly possessions, if you will. You have to discern the voices in you. I was suicide. A lot of stuff happened after 2014. So anyway, this person now, this news lady, has been taken over. And it's obvious, back then she already was taken over, the way she behaved in that whole station. She's currently now with San Jose News, California, Channel 11 News, Today in the Bay, and Midday in the Bay. And so she's been there about 25 years, which makes sense. I don't know where Gilbert is. I have no idea. I don't care. And so watch that movie, They're Alive. Watch Coco. Disney movies are really great. And I want you to know that God is real. He is. And there's a mother God and child God in the Trinity. And you are the animal. So the vegan as much as possible. Plant-based. Seek it out. Start growing your own food. Start trying not to commute. Don't panic. When one door closes, another one opens. I said this before, when I was really in a good mood and I really surrendered. You have to surrender a lot. You'll find when you start going through this. I walked into Savers and just went right to these shirts, and everyone pertained to me. And I've done this before when I've gone out and I never had to try on clothes again. Everything fit me, and I pick it out, and that fit me perfect. Or just taking off walking for hours and not getting hurt ever, So your aura builds up, your spirit allies build up, and you can keep yourself safe, okay? Home gyms are really a cool thing to get for your family. It's a really great gift you can give yourself. I was watching the news, a girl got attacked in her home gym, her apartment gym, and it reminded me of, just these places where you're isolated and so on. A lot of creeps out there, and a lot of confused spirits, and people doing really terrible things to people. So, it's just a big competition, life. They want everybody to compete against each other. And I see it with my grandkids. I see it with people. I see it with, of course, sports people. I see it with news people. And competing against, for the story, running the same story, 8 people, 8 different stations, again and again and again and again. They keep going into the past. And traumatizing family members and people and victims of crimes, big time, by repeating these stories again and again and again. And not understanding that you're in the food chain. So, the best thing to do is just learn how to breathe. If you can breathe, you're safe. And you look around and you look and say, am I safe? You're safe. If you're safe, you're safe. Others aren't. And that's how you surrender, is you just breathe and let the consciousness carry you. And you don't think. You'll hear thoughts and you'll know consciousness is going this way. It's like that blockage of what happened. We used to daydream. And now we have nightmares, a lot of people. My dreams are a lot better than what they were growing up. I had nightmares my whole life and my whole marriage. I rarely have a nightmare now. They're actually pretty cool dreams. And funny and weird. For the most part. So, learn how to do that. Just remind yourself to surrender. Oh, when you think you're not telepathic, you don't realize. Before I woke up and started hearing communication inside, I was hearing thoughts. I was thinking them. I thought I was alone and I wasn't collective. You're collective. I was thinking these thoughts. That's real other spirits complaining. They're usually complaining. I hate him. God, I can't believe how he's behaving. I can't believe what he just said. You know, you're constantly complaining in your head, you know, about your body, your face, your this. I need to get Botox. I need to do plastic surgery. I need to be perfect and go on a diet. You don't need to. And when you go vegan, you're not on a diet. You can eat whatever you want. I found the best mousse. It's a brownie batter mousse hummus at Target just recently. It's delicious. It's plant-based. I love sweets. I love soda. And so these thoughts are real. You can, you know, you talk in your head, try and do this. Channel these thoughts and go, I hear you. I know I'm not alone. Who's doing this? And you might start hearing this dialogue without having to ingest ayahuasca or marijuana or LSD or whatever you think you need to ingest to open up or be one with the universe. You don't need to do these things. They're dangerous. So be careful. And anyway, use that, okay? And wake yourselves up. Get out of the Stepford realm. All right, peace out. Toodaloo.